Every year since 1896, the loser of the U.S. presidential election has made a very public concession speech. That is, until 2020. Donald Trump lost the election, but refused to concede to Joe Biden, breaking a 124-year-old streak. Didn't attend inauguration either. Now, to be clear, there's no legal requirement that the loser must concede. But Trump is accused of going much further than that. He's now been charged with plotting to stay in office, raising questions about the strength of American democracy, which depends on a peaceful transition of power. Joining us now, presidential historian and Pulitzer Prize-winning best-selling author Doris Kearns Goodwin. Thanks so much for joining us. Is there any analog to this moment? Just to start 30,000 foot, what can we compare this to in American history?
Yeah, the only moment we really can compare it to, the only other time that the peaceful transition of power was not realized is 1860. And one of the things Lincoln said about that was, so what happens? The South loses the election, the Democratic Party loses to the Republican Party in the South, and they decide they're going to secede from the Union. They will not accept that loss. And Lincoln said, if we allow that to stand, this is the central issue that their struggle is really about, then democracy will be considered an absurdity. Ordinary people cannot govern themselves. The only other time, and every other time, the person who lost, and what's so important about even playing those clips as you did, is to show the human emotions that are involved. A person's been in an election for months, they're exhausted, they're so sad at losing. I mean, one of the things that Carter said when he was in his concession speech, I promised I wouldn't lie to you, but I can't lie. I must tell you now, I'm really hurt. This is hard. But on the other hand, I accept that I have lost. And he said, I've been a great chance to have some shaping of the destiny of our country. No man can ask for more. I congratulate the winner. I mean, we've needed that time and time again. It's what democracy is about. You know, you can either vote the guys in or you can throw them out. And the guy who loses has to be able to accept it with humility and dignity. Only now, and 1860, 2 times in our history.
Yeah. But bringing up Lincoln, he also said in that debate with Stephen Douglas, with public sentiment, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. And you just look at where the public sentiment is now among Republicans, and I wonder if that makes you worried.
You know, Poppy, you're absolutely right. I mean, Lincoln said that more important even than a law that is passed by the Supreme Court, more important than a Congress that is passing a law, is public sentiment. And what he meant by that was not a snap public opinion. What he meant was that at a certain point in a country's history, there's a settled feeling that comes upon the country that something is right and something is wrong, something doesn't meet the ideals of the country. That's what happened as the anti-slavery movement built up its momentum so that finally slavery was going to have to end. Once public sentiment knew that, it was inevitable it was going to go. Right now, the challenge is for the country to build up an overwhelming understanding that what President and former President Trump has tried to do is wrong. It's against the ideals of the country. And I think that's why it's so important that the trial be on television so we can see what's at issue. That's why it's so important we talk, as we are this morning, about what the peaceful transition of power means. It's not just a slogan. It's something that humanly has shown character of the people who've run for office, that they're willing at that hardest moment to accept loss. And if public sentiment can be changed, so far there's a rock-bottom Republican Party that's not willing to do it. That's still not the majority of the country. The country has to organize at every level to make sure that public sentiment changes. If it changes, and if it overwhelmingly understands what's happened, and if the trials and the indictments help to do it, as January 6th did, then we're going to be okay. If it doesn't, then Lincoln's worry will be absolutely my worry as well.
I think my skepticism is based on the last 6 years of public sentiment not shifting when you would think it would, based on traditional kind of political realities or traditional national realities to some degree. Why do you think a televised trial, why do you think anything can change where the 35% of where Trump supporters have been, or where a significant portion of Republicans have been due to the power that Trump has in the party, would ever change?
Well, I guess my hope is that one of the reasons why public sentiment has not changed, excuse me, among some of the Republicans is that there's alternative networks that are spewing out different facts. So you're getting a different story in different places. But if a trial is there, it's going to be like in the old days when FDR gave a radio chat. 80% of the radios would be tuned in. It was the only thing on the air. In the 1960s, up till the time of cable, you had 3 television networks essentially saying the same thing, the same facts, if not different opinions. But a trial will be watched. A trial will be there. You're not going to be able to change the facts of the trial, even though it could be interpreted differently. So
Right.
maybe that will allow us to have a majority looking at the same thing and making a decision on the basis of what's right and what's wrong. But
I know
that's hope.
you-
I've got to hope. You got to believe in things. You got to believe that.
One of the reasons we always love Doris Kearns Goodwin, because she has hope. Doris, just finally, you want a televised trial. Rick Hasen, the constitutional scholar at UCLA, writes, U.S. v. Trump, that's the name of this case, will be the most important case in our nation's history. You know our nation's history. You think it will be, at least up to this point?
Without a question. I mean, this really is a test now of democracy. I know that all sounds so abstract, but as I say, democracy is so simple. You have to accept that the people who lose accept the loss. And that's what allows us to distinguish ourselves from other people around the country, around the world. And I think if this trial shows that that was not accepted and acts were taken to change the results of it as a result of it, and that's wrong and against democracy, then it will be the most important trial in the country, bar none. This is a moment as important in our history as 1860 was. And it took a civil war to solve that problem when democracy was under attack. And let us hope that we can do it through our own understanding, education, television is going to be very important. The internet's going to be very important. How this is all discussed in these next days and weeks and months ahead is going to be an educational process for the country, and it better come out with an understanding of what's happened so we can really make a judgment. What do we as a people want? What is the character of the person on trial? What is the trial about? All of these things are essential. It's essential for President Trump as well. We would hope that he would hope that if he thinks he can make change in the public's opinion, the people who do not think he's done the right thing, it's absolutely essential to happen before the election so that we can know that as we go to the election.
Doris Kearns Goodwin, with your wise words as always. Thank you.